As COVID cases are rising in the national capital, Home Minister Amit Shah will meet Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal tomorrow to review the COVID crisis. One of the worst affected cities right now is Delhi due to the pandemic. Delhi Lieutenant Governor Anil Baijal, Home Secretary, MHA officials will also be part of this crucial meeting, along with officials of the State Disaster Management Authority. The Director of AIIMS and other senior officers will be present at the meeting, which will start at 11 a.m. My colleague Arunima is joining us live from the national capital. Rupashri Nanda also with us on the broadcast. Rupashri, beginning the discussion with you, help us understand, especially keeping in mind the standoff that we have seen between the Delhi government and LG over some various important issues here in the national capital. How will this meeting help, and what is the larger, background under which this meeting is happening right now?
If you have noticed over the past few days, the Lieutenant Governor Anil Baijal and his office have been taking crucial decisions. And not just that, they have been overturning the decisions that have been taken by the elected government. And Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal has chosen to stand by whatever decisions Anil Baijal has taken, even though he and his elected government may disagree with them. For the perception for people outside, Kejriwal is extremely keen that no sort of dissonance appears in front of people as the capital is battling a pandemic. But surely there are a lot of differences between the Lieutenant Governor and the Chief Minister over how to handle the COVID crisis here in the capital. I remember also this was not the case when the entire crisis broke in the capital in March, but it has been happening over the past 2 to 3 weeks, if I may say. The most recent decision, of course, which everybody is aware, that Lieutenant Governor Anil Baijal overturned the decision on reserving beds in Delhi government hospitals for Delhiites, and also the Delhi government's order on testing. So two important decisions have been reserved. Apart from that, also Lieutenant Governor Anil Baijal has also constituted an expert committee to advise the government on COVID management on all important aspects. And this committee also has important people like DG ICMR, Professor Bhargava, and also AIIMS Director Randeep Guleria.
Okay.
So the fact that the LG should have considered at this point the necessity for such a committee to advise the government is also important, because it is a pointer to the fact that perhaps the results or delivery on the ground have not been up to the expectations.
Right.
Number two, the other important point is that Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal has already met the Home Minister once this week, and in that meeting, which lasted about 30 minutes, the Chief Minister has appraised the Home Minister about all the details that have happened in the SDMA's meeting regarding also, most importantly, about the kind of preparation that the city would need if patients from across the capital are also allowed
and all these points I'm going to take to Arunima as well. Arunima, in the backdrop of this, turf war, and it's not new as far as national capital is concerned, between the LG, we have seen that fight in the Supreme Court as well. To ensure that there is proper coordination, that there are beds available for all the patients in the NCR region or anybody coming to Delhi for treatment, how can the central government help? That will be a crucial thing to watch out for, because the Delhi government has been asking for more resources and money from the centre.
That all state governments have been asking, but Delhi is a unique case. The administration of Delhi is divided between the elected state government and the Lieutenant Governor who Ministry of Home Affairs, and that's why Home Minister's intervention is crucial. This is also coming at a time when the Supreme Court has gone all out in castigating the administration of Delhi for the way hospitals are being operated. Patients are being treated worse than animal is the observation from the Supreme Court of India. Notices have been issued. They have to answer the Supreme Court why the situation is so bad. Private hospitals are not, there's no availability of bed there. They're overcharging patients. Government hospitals, horror stories coming in from LNJP, from Safdarjung Hospital. Even bodies are not given the dignity that they deserve after their death. We showed one of those stories yesterday evening. So that is something that the central government is concerned about. They have to not just control the situation here in Delhi, they also have the Supreme Court breathing down their neck. And I think that's why Home Minister's meeting is crucial. Like Rupashri said, the Chief Minister has already met the Home Minister once, briefed him, but now there's fine-tuning of the strategy that is required, and therefore everybody will be on that discussion table tomorrow, starting from the AIIMS Director to the LG, the CM, the Home Secretary, other Home Ministry officials from the Union Territory Division, and everybody else who's involved with the COVID management strategy of the national capital.
You know, Arunima, as you said, that states across the country have been asking for more allocation of resources when it comes to fighting the COVID pandemic. And Delhi has a unique infrastructure. You have hospitals run by the state government, by the central government. There are MCD-run hospitals as well. Coordination is of utmost importance. Talking about the substantial things that you can expect out of that meeting, getting more resources, any kind of fund allocation or a task committee, what are the things we are actually looking at?
So let's take this point by point. What is number one problem that Delhi is facing right now? Scarcity of hospital beds. For that, they are considering converting stadiums. I think that work is already underway at some stage. Converting stadiums, converting hotels into hospitals so that there is bed availability there. But the point is, you can convert a hotel room into a hospital, provide all the equipments, but you do need medical professionals. You need a nurse there. You need a doctor there. You need somebody to take care of the patient, even if the patient is in a 5-star hotel. Where is the added health worker? Where is the added health infrastructure? That's an important question before anybody who's trying to tackle the COVID crisis here. Doctors have been complaining of non-payment of dues, and these are MCD doctors, doctors in MCD-run hospital, health workers in other parts. They're just not getting, enough support from the government. So what can you do for that? If their morale is low, can you really expect to win this war, as the Supreme Court has said? What about PPE kit? What about masks? There are still problem areas there. So I think more or less, point by point, these issues will be discussed with the home ministers. The nitty-gritties will be left to those on the ground who are actually implementing. But the broad strategy of where Delhi is going wrong, if the national capital of the country cannot provide basic health infrastructure, can this country really aim to become like a China or a Europe or any other developed country? The answer is a big no. It's a huge embarrassment, not just for the state government, but for the government of India as well.
Rupeshri Nanda tracking all the developments. Arunima getting us all the details from the Home Ministry as well. Let's see what are the substantial points that come out of that meeting. As the colleagues were pointing out, coordination is of very crucial importance here. Delhi is in the thick of the coronavirus pandemic storm, with spiraling cases, lack of proper facilities and doctors agitating over salaries. Take a look at this report filed by my colleague Arunima, which exposes the horrors from the hospitals here in the capital. Have a look.
Rising corona numbers, patients running from pillar to post for beds, apathy, we thought we had heard it all. But the ordeal of 2 Delhi families is more horrifying than anything we have heard so far. On 6th of June, Santram passed away at Delhi's LNJP hospital after running from one hospital to the other as he increasingly became breathless. His family says Santram found little support at LNJP. His son transferred him from a stretcher to a bed, hunted for oxygen support and for doctors, but the worst was yet to come. Santram's body was shown to his family on the 7th morning, wrapped in a body bag and sent for cremation to Nigambodh Ghat.
बॉडी लाके हमने अपना चिता पे रख दी। अब उन पंडित जी को बोला, पंडित जी थोड़ा आके दर्शन करा दीजिए, हमारे घर से रिलेटिव्स आए हुए हैं। उन्होंने बिल्कुल स्ट्रिक्टली मना कर दिया कि सर फेस नहीं दिखाया जा सकता। हम लोग आधे रास्ते में पहुंचे थे, मेरे पास हॉस्पिटल से कॉल आया कि आपने अंतिम संस्कार कर दिया है क्या? मैंने जी मैम हमने कर दिया। फिर सर कंफ्यूजन है कुछ, आप जल्दी जाइए उधर वापस और वहाँ एक बार कंफर्म कीजिए, क्योंकि एम्बुलेंस में एक बॉडी पड़ी है। वापस गए तो पता चला मेरे फादर की बॉडी वहीं पे ही है।
At the same Nigambodh Ghat, Meera Devi's son and daughter were running from one ambulance to the other, trying to locate their mother's body. The family says on 4th of June, their mother Meera Devi had complained of headache and they had taken her to Malviya Nagar Hospital, from where she was sent to LNJP.
वहाँ पे उन्होंने मेरे को RML हॉस्पिटल के लिए बोला कि आप वहाँ जाओ, उनका एक टेस्ट होगा। जो कागज वगैरह थे वो उन्होंने डॉक्टरों ने एम्बुलेंस के ड्राइवर को दिए, हमें नहीं दिए। अब जो वहाँ गए तो एम्बुलेंस के ड्राइवर हमें LNJP हॉस्पिटल लेकर चला गया। और वहाँ के डॉक्टरों ने क्या करा, उनको लेकर सीधा अंदर लेकर चले गए और वहाँ पे उनको 2 घंटे रखा। मैं भी उनके साथ था, पर उनका कोई टेस्ट नहीं किया, कुछ नहीं किया।
From 4th to 6th June, Mukesh, Meera Devi's son, says he ran from one doctor to the other, trying to locate his mother, but all in vain. His repeated request for discharge was ignored. Even calls to PCR and Chief Minister's office to rescue his mother went unanswered. Finally, on 6th, he was told his mother was no more. Mukesh claims his mother was never tested for COVID, but doctors said she had died of coronavirus.
मुझे कह रहे कि तुम वहाँ जाओ निगमबोध घाट, हम वहीं आएंगे। जब हम वहाँ गए तो हम ढूंढ रहे थे, एक गाड़ी खड़ी थी वहाँ पे, तो उसमें एक थे उनका नाम संतराम दिख रहा था। तो वो कह रहा मेरे से ड्राइवर, ये तुम्हारी मम्मी है। मैंने बोला मेरी मम्मी तो नहीं है ये। मैंने बोला चेहरा दिखाओ, तो चेहरा नहीं दिखा रहा। कह रहा चेहरा नहीं दिखाते। उसके बाद मैं हॉस्पिटल गया। मैंने ऐसे उन्होंने बोला आप तो कह रहे हो कि मेरी मम्मी को वहाँ भेज रखा है, मेरी मम्मी तो वहाँ पे है ही नहीं। उसके बाद वो कहते हैं कि हमारी मम्मी को किसी और ने वो कर दिया,
क्रिमेट कर दिया।
हाँ।
For these two families, there's no closure even after the ordeal that they have gone through. Santaram's family feels guilty that they became the reason why Meera Devi was denied a proper cremation. And for her family, they are still in complete shock. And these are not isolated incidents. Like the Supreme Court of India observed, for Delhi COVID patients who are dying, even the basic dignity in death is being denied. With Ravinder Kumar and P.K. Das, this is Arunima.
Now, at a time when coronavirus caseload is increasing in Maharashtra, the worst hit state due to the pandemic, the state government has taken an important decision. It has cut the cost of COVID testing to half, and the new guidelines will be applicable to all the private labs. The new cost to get a COVID test is 2,200 at a hospital and 2,800 for a test to be done at home. Listen in to what the minister concerned had to say.
यानी हॉस्पिटल से पिकअप करना और रिपोर्ट देना RT-PCR का, इसके लिए 2200 रुपये। और किसी के घर जाके फिर घर जाना है तो उसका ट्रांसपोर्टेशन है, उसके लिए PPE किट यूज़ करना है, तो ये सभी लैब को खर्चा आ सकता है। तो इसीलिए अगर किसी के घर जाके करना है तो 2800 रुपये। तो मुझे लगता है कि 2200 और 2800, तो ये दो रेट्स हमने फिक्स किए। ये पूरे भारतवर्ष में या पूरे हमारे देश के जितने भी राज्य हैं उसमें सबसे कम रेट, न्यूनतम रेट आज महाराष्ट्र में है।
My colleague Vinaya Deshpande is joining us on the broadcast. Vinaya, a very welcome step, and price capping is something that everyone needs right now so that it becomes accessible and affordable for everyone. Help us understand whatever details are out in the public domain about the absorption of the remainder cost, the quality of the testing kits, etc.
Well, there is no additional cost is what the state government has said. It has said that since there is an excess of RT-PCR test kits that is already there with the state, so right now the costing of the testing kits has itself come down.
Okay.
And that is why the government makes it clear now that there is not going to be any additional costing that the state government or anybody else will have to bear. But in fact, since the costing of the test kits themselves have come down, the government, the health minister says, wants to pass down that benefit to people instead of the labs profiteering from it. And that is why the health minister says that, the amount that is being charged for the test is being reduced. Several senior state government officials tell us that there is already a large stack of kits that is pending with the state government, and that is what has brought down the pricing of the testing kits. And that is why there is no additional cost for the testing kits.
All right. Thank you, Vinaya, for putting all the details into perspective for us. A very welcome move by the Maharashtra government, and perhaps other state governments could also follow the suit. Some update about Maulana Saad. We know that name from the Tablighi Jamaat incident in the national capital. Their chief Maulana Saad has been spotted after 3 months at a mosque in Delhi. A video that has surfaced shows Saad offering prayers at Abu Bakr Mosque. Remember, an FIR was earlier lodged against him under the Epidemic Disease Act for leading a religious congregation at Nizamuddin Markaz in Delhi in March, and this is when the restrictions were in place due to COVID-19. Tablighi Jamaat chief is yet to appear before the Delhi police for questioning. The ED has also registered a money laundering case against him. Some updates coming in from Rajasthan. Barely 3 hours from the state capital of Jaipur, the village council of Karauli held a massive panchayat gathering where no social distancing was followed. Hundreds gathered for the meeting and sat in close proximity with each other. This even as Rajasthan government seals its border in the wake of rising COVID tally, making it the 5th worst affected state in the country. So the question arises, how did the local administration allow this to happen? My colleague Bhavani gets you this report about how has the coronavirus pandemic impacted the hotel business. He's spoken to various stakeholders. This is a report from JW Marriott Hotel in Jaipur. Have a look.
कोरोना काल में काफ़ी कुछ बदला है, तो खास तौर पर होटल्स खुल गए, लेकिन होटलों के अंदर देखिए कि किस तरीके से चेक इन हो रहा है। JW मेरिट के अंदर, होटल के अंदर है, इसमें विधायक MLA हैं, वो रुके हुए हैं। तो देखिए कि जैसे ही MLA का सामान आया, आप देख सकते हैं कि किस तरीके से पूरी तरह से सैनिटाइज किया जा रहा है। और यहाँ पर देखिए कि इन्होंने ये सिस्टम यहाँ पर कर रखा है कि यहाँ पर उसके बाद में आप देखेंगे कि एक स्कैनर के जरिए निकाला जा रहा है और थर्मल स्क्रीनिंग भी की जा रही है। थर्मल स्क्रीनिंग करने वाले स्टाफ ने PPE किट पहन रखा है और पूरी तरीके से आप देखिए कि होटल के स्टाफ ने किस तरीके से इस बात की सावधानी बरत रहे हैं। मास्क यहाँ पर रखे हुए हैं, जिससे कि अगर किसी के पास मास्क नहीं हो तो मास्क ले सकते हैं। तो अब यहाँ पर सारे विधायक रुके हुए हैं, कांग्रेस के विधायक रुके हुए हैं। तो उसी को देखते हुए खासतौर पर केवल इस होटल में नहीं, तमाम होटलों ने इस इंतज़ाम किए। कोरोना काल को देखते हुए किसी भी विधायक को छूना न पड़े, यहाँ पर ये सारे इंतज़ाम किए गए यहाँ पर।
Now, Nepal's parliament will vote on a bill to change the country's map that pulls in parts of Uttarakhand. The map has been at the centre of strained ties between India and Nepal. Nepal's legislators are expected to approve the revised map of the country, including 3 areas of dispute with India. The redrawing of the map covers a relatively small region high in the Himalayas, but it is certain to severely strain the bilateral ties. Nepal has hurriedly gone about the process of seeking the approval of the parliament, despite attempts by India to reach out to the country in the past few days. Nepal justifies its action by saying that the decision was taken after India inaugurated a road to Lipu Lake Pass, which Nepal shows as its own. Now, responding to the matter, Army Chief has said that India has a very strong relation with Nepal and it will remain strong in the future as well. Listen in.
We have a very strong relationship with Nepal. Religious linkages, we have a very strong people-to-people connect, and our relation with them has always been strong and will remain strong in the future.
Maha Siddiqui is joining us on the broadcast, giving us more perspective on that story. Maha, help us understand the feeling within the Indian administration right now. How hopeful are we of a resolution?
Well, the Indian government had, when they released the first statement with regards to the map, when it was released by the Land Management Ministry in Nepal, after the Oli government said that they will alter the map of Nepal to include Limpiadhura, Kalapani and Lipu Lake. At that time, the statement that had come from India was fairly sharp. India had said not only that it rejected this map, but had also said this is an unjustified cartographic assertion by Nepal. This has unilaterally been done. And India is open to speaking diplomatically, having a dialogue with Nepal, whatever it feels is a dispute, according to them. For India, these territories are very much within India, and they are part of Uttarakhand. In fact, when the new map was released in India after the 2 union territories were carved out last year from Jammu and Kashmir, then this map had clearly shown these areas to be part of Pithoragarh in Uttarakhand.
Yeah.
So India said that we are open to dialogue. But what has happened in the interim period is that the foreign secretary level talks that were supposed to take place have not been able to take place. They have been scheduled for some time, as in that there was a talk that they will be conducted, but they haven't. And much of it, some officials also says because of the current COVID-19 pandemic situation. On the other side, what Nepal has been saying is that they have been alleging that there has been no reach out from the Indian side over the past few weeks when this matter has come up. In fact, KP Sharma Oli on the 10th of June said that we are still open to a dialogue to resolve the situation. But on the other side, Anusha, let me point out that KP Sharma Oli himself has taken a very, very, strident view of this matter.
Yeah.
In fact, so much so, Anusha, that he has also been making bizarre claims like the coronavirus from India is much more virulent than that from China. So all this is being looked at as him taking a very nationalistic view.
Thank you, Ma, for putting the details into perspective for us. Now, in his first official response on the Indo-China standoff at the LAC, Army Chief M.M. Narawane has said that the entire situation is under control. He has said that a lot of disengagement has already taken place and that the ongoing series of high-level delegation talks with the Chinese side has been followed up with meetings at the local level between the commanders of equivalent ranks. General was wary of saying that troops had retreated but expressed confidence that the situation will improve very soon. After reports emerged suggesting that the United States is considering suspending H-1B visas, the US-India Strategic Partnership Forum has written to the White House terming such a move suicidal for America's IT firms. The body in its letter to the US government emphasized now H-1B visa holders will help lift the economy, US economy, as curbs due to the COVID are gradually lifted. If implemented, the decision to suspend the visa in the wake of the jobs crisis in US could have adverse impact on the Indian professionals in US. But even as worries mount, the White House has clarified that no final decision has been taken yet. Mukesh Aghi, the President and Chief Executive Officer at the US-India Strategic Partnership, he spoke to CNN News 18. He said that 42 million American citizens are unemployed, but only a small fraction can meet the high skill requirement of the IT industry. Listen into this conversation with Maha Siddiqui.
I have with me the head of US ISPF, Dr. Mukesh Aghi, to talk about the issue of the H-1B visas. Dr. Aghi, this information that is coming from America that there could be a temporary suspension of the H-1B visa, I want to understand from you, how could it impact the IT industry specifically?
Yeah, so you have to understand that you have around 42 million unemployed in the US, and vast majority are not in the IT sector. They're more in the non-IT sector itself. H-1B basically provides IT skills to the industry, which the US economy benefits a lot from their skill level, the efficiency they bring to the corporate America and make them more competitive on a global basis. Today, we have a shortage of 1 million software engineers in the US. So what you have is the issue of supply and demand gap. So H-1B benefits IT companies in the US in every aspect. Now, what really happens is there's no concrete announcement which says that H-1B is going to be stopped. What we are hearing is a certain amount of discussions coming through, certain amount of points coming through. We have written to the White House requesting that no action be taken on H-1B for a very simple reason: it will have an impact on the US companies which are competing on a global basis.
Now, historians across the globe are now documenting life in the time of COVID. From rainbows to grocery store lines, there is indeed lots to remember. CNN's Cyril Vania with this report. Have a look.
Once bustling city streets, sitting deserted. A conversation between generations forced to stay apart. Grocery shopping dressed in a makeshift hazmat. A healthcare worker clearly exhausted on the front lines. These are some of the images that capture a pivotal time in history as museums and cultural institutions around the globe work to document the coronavirus pandemic. In late April, historic England asked people for photos of life on lockdown in their first call for public submissions since World War II. In 1 week, they received nearly 3,000 entries from around the country, illustrating a diverse collective experience.
We've seen a lot of rainbows. That's become a real symbol in the UK of a kind of solidarity within this time. We've seen a lot of examples of people coming out to clap for carers. We've had some really lovely images of people communicating to their elderly relatives. And really pleasingly, we've seen a real example of the kind of British sense of humour. One couple recreated the John Lennon and Yoko Ono bed-in, but it has stay home messages behind it.
Elsewhere, curators focus not only on visual display, but physical objects iconic of an unprecedented time.
Certainly a recurring object is face masks. They have become the most powerful visual symbol of the crisis. Also, they've become a political statement as well.
Signage offering gloves to those who can't afford it. A playground cordoned off to keep children from gathering. Computer screens used to socialize in the age of social distancing. These are the items and images that will tell the story of our unprecedented time.
Unprecedented times, and our way of living has completely changed. That and much more going up on our website news18.com. With that, it's a wrap on this edition. Thank you for watching this side.